Alright guys, we're back with yet another video. Professor T here. Uh, so today we are going to study about production, which is not a very difficult topic. There are some calculations in that you should know, and you will be able to nail that topic. So let's begin. First of all, definition of production. It's not here. So production, as I have told in my previous videos, is the act of converting resources, which is converting raw materials, which acts as an input, into goods and services, in brackets output, for consumers. So production occurs through this. You can just give it a read. The difference between goods and services: that good are tangible. I've explained that previously. They have a physical form and can be touched. Services are intangible products. They are like performing something for a consumer, and they are intangible. Tangible means that can be touched. Intangible cannot be touched. Service sector of the economy is known as the tertiary sector. Very good. Now production is important for economy in order to meet the wants and needs of the society. Society has needs and wants, they need to be met, and so that's why production is important. If production falls, it means reduced supply. This will lead to higher prices and a lack of choice. Very self-explanatory. Increased production is likely to improve job prospects. If production is increasing, what the firms want is, the firms want to increase production, right? So they would like to hire more workers, and if increased production would further lead to increasing production, because firms would want to produce more if there is demand for them, and that is why they would need more employees, and as a result there would be low unemployment, which is an economic objective of the government. However, new technology, now there is one problem, new technology has reduced demand for some type of workers, especially low skilled ones, because the job can be done by the computers rather than workers, and computers will not take any wages, so it's good for the firms as they can cut costs. Then a fall in production suggests less demand for domestically produced goods and services, impacting on economic growth. So now if there is a fall in production, what firms will do is they will cut on labor. They'll say, okay, well, fall in production, it's why would there be a fall in production? Well, it would only be there when there is less demand for your products, and when there is less demand for your products, you would naturally want to reduce costs, and so what you would do for that, you will cut on labor, and that would increase unemployment, impacting on economic growth. Now, productivity has two definitions. I have previously explained in my videos. So, productivity can be defined as the output per unit input, or output per worker per unit time. Output per unit input, or output per worker per unit time. It's not written per unit time here, but you should mention that in the exam, just in case. However, input can be other factors of production, example capital, blah blah blah. Now, if successful, then firms will achieve. So, why would firms want increased productivity? So, they'll reduce lead times and faster response to changes in the market, less wastage because the workers become efficient, faster development time for new products, lower costs, increased working capital, and better quality, which is very important. You want to have the best quality, and you would want to have the lowest costs as possible, and well, faster development time for new products. Very self-explanatory. A business will set targets linked to keeping unit costs as low as possible, whilst not affecting quality, because quality is very important. If you don't have good quality, people will not buy from you. So technology influences unit costs. Now, like, if machines become efficient, your unit costs will be low. So increased number of units produced. Yeah, because machines can do a lot of work, right? More work than humans. Spreads fixed costs. We'll come to that. Negotiate discounts with suppliers, bulk buying, and greater use of effects. So productivity is increased. Efficiency of workforce, use of workforce hours, and the material usage reduces wastage because machines can be used again and again. A business can pass reduced costs onto the consumer through lower prices, right? Why not? If you if a business faces reduced costs, so this, we don't have enough costs for our businesses, well, that means we can sell our goods at low price. That would increase our demand for our goods as well. Perfect. That's all we want, and that's what would happen. This is particularly important in competitive markets when a customer can go elsewhere. In the previous video, when we studied about markets, when there is competitive markets, there is loads of firms competing in the markets, and what you want to do is you want to have the best quality as well as the lowest price. And so this is very important for that. So alternatively, the businesses might maintain its prices, meaning that lower costs can lead to higher profit margins for every unit sold. If your cost is low, let's say your costs were reduced from 20 to 10, right? 20 pounds to 10 pounds per unit, and your price and the selling price is still 50. As a result, your profit margin, which was 30, because 50 minus 20 is 30, is now 40, because 50 minus 10 is 40. So that's its meaning. Now, this is a good question. 150 Kit Kat bars are consumed around the world every second. Nestle look for ways to increase productivity on an ongoing basis by investing in research and development. So, what is meant by the term productivity? Productivity is output per unit input or output per worker per unit time. Now, explain how investment in R&D could lead to increased productivity. So, whenever there is an explain question, you should first give the definition of the key term. But we have already done in the first question, so we don't need to do that in the second question. So if there is more investment, that means there is more probability of increasing efficiency, and as a result, the company would find more efficient ways to produce. So which would increase productivity. Now, what is the possible benefit of improved productivity? Lower unit costs, thus lower selling price, so more profits. Well, anyone you can write. Now, costs are expenses incurred by business. Of course, when you are making a product, you will face costs. So there could be materials, equipment, wages. You need to supply wages to labor, materials, equipment, and marketing. If you want to advertise your product, utilities, example, heat, light, power, etc., transport, lot of costs. Now, fixed costs are ones that do not vary with the amount of business activity. Example, numbers sold or produced. So these include rent. So, for example, if you are producing a product in, let's say, a factory, and you have got that factory on a rent, so that would be your fixed cost. It doesn't matter how many products, how many units you sell, you will still have to pay the same amount of rent, same amount of salaries, and same amount of machinery. Now, variable costs do not vary with the amount of business activity. As more is produced or sold, the cost will rise. So, these include raw materials. If you want to sell more products, you will need to have more raw materials, thus, your costs for raw materials would increase. And now, wages could potentially increase if you are hiring more labor. If you have existing labor, like let's say if you are only using your existing labor, then it's just a fixed cost. But if you are hiring more labor, then it's a variable cost. And then commission on sales, well, if that could be related to affiliate marketing, like let's say if someone is promoting your product and they buy through that link, you have to pay them commission, and then that could be a variable cost. Now, fixed costs stay the same regardless of output. Therefore, a fixed cost of 12,000 is 12,000 even if you produce 0 items or 1,500 items. The fixed costs of a restaurant include rent, tables, chairs. Well, tables and chairs, as long as they are the same amount of them is present. Ovens, manager, menus, place settings, etc. These costs stay the same regardless of number of customers, provided that you don't try to increase them yourself. Now, fill in the fixed cost row on the table. Customer 0, fixed costs. Okay, let me just bring my charger. So fixed cost is, if it's 12,000, it will be 12,000 in all the blanks. Just let me get my charger. I'll be back in a second. Alright, yes, sorry for that. So these were our fixed and fixed costs. Now, moving on to the variable costs, change with the amount of output. If the cost per unit is 5, then there is zero output, then the variable cost will be. Huh? Then variable cost will be 5 only because you didn't sell anything, right? Or what do they mean by that? If 1000 units, then variable cost will be 5000. Oh, okay. So if it's zero, then the cost will be cost. Like if you have produced a unit, then it's 5. Otherwise, it's just zero. The variable cost of a restaurant would include food, ingredients, drinks, number of waiting staff. Fill in the variable cost row. So if it's 1000 times 5, 5000. 500 times 5 will be 2500. 1500 times 5 is 7500. And this would be just, well, if it's zero customers, then assuming that you are not producing even a single unit, it would be zero. Otherwise, it's 5. Well, if you're zero customers, well, let's just assume that you're not producing anything, then it's just zero. So 0 times 5 is 0. Now, total cost is calculated by adding together both the fixed and variable costs. Total cost is equal to fixed cost plus variable cost. At this point, test your memory by recalling what. Give an example of fixed cost and a variable cost. So, fixed cost is your machinery. If you have the same machinery, if you have the same amount of labor, so their salaries. Variable costs, commissions, and number of raw materials, so cost for raw materials, etc. If you want, I can go just back here. Rent, salaries, machinery, raw materials, wages, commission. Well, there are others as well, but if you remember 2 or 3, that would be really good. Now, well, total cost will be, of course, what will be total cost? It will be your fixed cost plus your total variable cost. So now customer 0, your fixed cost is 12,000, your variable cost is 0. You just add them, you get 12,000. Now here you have 500 customers. You get your, you just add them, you get 14,500. You get 17,000 here. Yep. And here you get 19,500. So you just add them. Now let's try to fill this table. A business has fixed costs of 300. If variable costs are 6 per unit produced, complete the table to show how total costs are different levels of output. Okay, alright. Let me see if I can edit this. I most likely can. Right. So first of all, fixed costs. So they will be 300 regardless of the units. 300, 300, 300. Now variable costs, they are 6 per unit. So 0 times 6 is 0. 100 times 6 is 600. 200 times 6 is 1200 or 1200. 300 times 6 is 1800. You just add them, you get 300, 900, 1500 and 2100. That's it. That's how you fill the table. So fixed costs, they remain the same regardless of the units. Variable costs, you just multiply by the units and then you just add them. Okay, so let's go back to this question. So Bella runs a small business making balloon decorations for the wedding. She sells an average of 100 displays per month at a price of 90. Okay, so profit could be calculated by revenue minus costs, because if you get the revenue, then you subtract the costs, you get profit, right? Because your cost was okay. I thought the stream stopped. Never mind. So that's your profit. So profit is the surplus money got when the costs were subtracted from the revenue. Now calculate Bella's revenue for 1 month. Well, you know the formulas and you can do that. So if how many units is she producing? This goes 20 to make 100. Yeah. So she would be getting a revenue of 90 times 100, 9,000, and it costs 20 to make, so 100 times 20 is 2,000. So 9,000 minus 2,000 would give her 7,000 would give her profit. So this is how you just need to go. So your cost will be 20 times 100, which is 2,000. So this is very simple calculations. Now average cost. Average cost is total cost upon output. So what do I mean by that? Okay, let me give you an example. Average cost. Let's say you produce two products, right? One costs 15 pounds to make. Okay, 15. Oh my, why can't I write? Other one costs 35, right? Now, so your total cost was 35 plus 15, which was 50. Now if you want to calculate your average costs, you see you produced two items, item 1, this was your item 2. So your average cost will be just 50 upon 2. So your total cost upon units produced, which is 25 pounds. So this is just, so total costs upon output. So if total costs are 1000 and your output is 100 units, then 1000 upon 100 is 10 units. Example, your fixed costs are 100,000, your variable costs are 2 per unit, and your output is 5,000, 50,000 units. So first of all, fixed costs plus you calculate your total variable cost. So you multiply 2 by 50,000 because that would give you your variable costs, total variable costs, and you just add them. So that would give you 200,000, and you just divide it by 50,000 again, so that you get per unit. You get the average cost per unit, because average cost is per unit. Unless they ask you like what is the average cost per 10 units. So in that case you would multiply 4 times 10, which is 40. Now, okay, so this is the same thing. So you know the concept, you can just fill the table on your own. There's no point wasting time on that. So costs are just one side of the equation. They look at the money going out of the business. Revenues are the other side. They look at the money coming out of the business. This is nothing, just revenue. So revenue is just the money you gain after by selling the product. So like you multiply the selling price times the number of units sold. So now some firms will just have one source of revenue. Example, taxi company provides taxi rides and receives a fare from the customer. Other will have several sources. Example, a concert venue which charge an entry fee, sell drinks, hire venue for private parties midweek, etc. They can do anything with that. Now this is nothing, Okay. So revenue is selling price times units. Sorry. So here, so customer, so what's it's 15, right? So it's times 15 here. So yeah, 15. So 0 times 15 is 0, 1000 times 15 is 15,000, 1500 times 15 is 22500, so 22,500. Total revenue is equal to number of items sold times selling price per item. Very good. And if I sell 100 items, 60p. And now your average revenue is again total revenue upon output. So let's say, so now these were your costs, right? So now, for example, now using a similar example, let's say we sell our item 1 at 60 and the other one at 40, right? So total revenue was 100. Now you sold two products, so 100 upon 2, no, I should not do that here. So your average revenue will be 100 upon 2, and which is 50. So that's your average revenue. Total revenue. So like how much money you get, like use common sense. Like how would you calculate the money you get? You multiply the selling price times the units sold, and then you want to calculate average revenue, you just divide it by the units sold. In this case, that's what happened here. 24. No. So total and average revenues, you could do that. If not, just message me and I'll personally try to teach you how to do that. Revenue again, yeah, is the and costs, add up all the costs incurred in the making the sales. So some will be variable, some will be fixed. You just add them, you get your total costs. Now profit is revenue minus costs. That's it. So let's say you get some amount of money by selling your products. Now if you want to see how much you actually made, like what was your profit, so like I'm pretty sure all of you know what profit is. So what you would do is just you go to the revenue, you subtract the costs, and what you are left with is just profit. For example, you got 800 here, you got costs. Remember, so these are all for 1000 cups, so we are in the same units. So 800 minus 225, and this is your profit. So yeah, a good equation to remember would be, so profit plus costs. Oh no, sorry, what am I saying? So revenue minus costs is equals to profit, and so revenue is equals to profits plus costs. I could have written this in this way as well, but these are the good way to remember it. So, but if you just use some common sense, you would not even need to remember this equation. If prices rise, producers will make a higher profit. That's they want. This will lead to some producers expanding production. Now, expanding production has its own advantages, which is known as economies of scale. We'll just talk about that in a second. And now, if they have spare capacity, they might decide to use it. Increasing capacity utilization will help lower unit costs because you become more efficient. As fixed costs are spread over greater output, right? So now, for the same fixed cost, you are producing more units. So your average cost would decrease because fixed costs don't change. Some firms are able to switch production from one product to another. That's very beneficial. That makes your product very that makes your firm very price elastic. The products you make price elastic. Yeah. Some firms will enter the industry attracted by the higher profits that are available. Right. Just a second. Now, economies of scale. So these are like any financial advantages that are encountered when you increase your scale of production. Any financial advantages that you encounter when you increase your scale of production. Now, what this does is it leads to a decrease in unit costs. This means that more units that a business produces, the lower the cost of producing each one will become. This is because the fixed costs such as rent or marketing are spread over more units. Very self-explanatory. Now, economies scale are of many types. So the first one is managerial. A larger firm can afford to employ the best people in their field. These experts can help both to increase revenue and reduce costs. So you make a very big firm, let's say over a good area, and then you hire one or two or three managers, right? Now these managers should be very skilled, but if they're very skilled, they can supervise the whole region, and as a result, they would reduce your cost. Purchasing, a firm can gain a discounted price from a supplier as they are buying in larger quantities. This is also known as bulk buying economies of scale. So when you buy in bulk, you get discount mostly. Financial, so like larger firms can take more risks because they are large enough. They already have huge source of assets. So even if the risk doesn't pay off, they are still not in a huge loss. While if a small firm try to invest a lot of money, they might lose it and then they would be in huge loss. Technical firm can invest in new product development or technology to make their production process more efficient. Risk bearing, larger firms can spread their risk because if you keep on getting large and large, the other companies would be scared of you. And now many businesses have an objective of growth in order to achieve economies of scale. This can be achieved through internal growth or external growth. If you there is one more concept called diseconomies of scale. It's not in the specification, but it's something like if you expand too much, what would happen is there could be problems such as communication problems. So that would again lead to your costs to increase. But that's not in the specification. I thought it's an interesting fact, so why not just tell you? Many businesses have an objective of growth in order to achieve economies of scale. This can be achieved through internal growth or external growth. Internal growth is when a business expands from within, for example, opening new stores or launching new products. External expansion is when a business grows by joining with other businesses, for example, buying out a competitor. Very self explanatory. Now, internal growth, also known as organic growth, so it's like when companies expand internally, opening new stores or launching new products. So, like open a franchisee. What's its advantage? Lower risk option. As others are taking on some of the responsibility, it can go more quickly, can use national advertising campaigns. Franchises may have specialist knowledge of other regions or countries. So, like you can open a franchisee where you know there is likely to be more demand. And the disadvantages, franchisee will keep a share of the profit. It will be reliant on others to maintain standards and potential damage to brand reputation. So, if like example, so sometimes you just don't monitor the franchisee, and if people see less customer service from there, like degraded customer service, what would happen is it would damage your brand reputation. Complex procedures to set up as a franchisor. Yeah, franchisee setting up a franchisee also takes some procedures. Now, implications effects of economies of scale on business behavior. So, possible approaches: opening new stores, increasing the number of physical stores, making it more convenient for the consumer. So, it's like how to gain economies of scale. So, e-commerce, use of online sales, outsourcing, using a third party to carry out some functions on behalf of the business, example, affiliate marketing, and often involves using a service of business in another country, example China or Mexico. Yeah, you could do that. For example, some companies like Amazon use another countries for their tax account or something. So what they do is they get rid of the tax by, it's something like they use their so they set up their tax things in the country where there are low rates on tax. So as a result, they have to pay very little or no tax. So that's an example of that. External growth can occur in two ways. So merger, this is where two businesses agree to become integrated to form one business under joint ownership. So A plus B becomes AB. And takeover is where you just buy them. You don't even merge, you just buy them. So the manager of the dominant business will be in control. So this form of external growth can be hostile. So A plus B is equals to A. So it's like they just bought it and they just included in their own. So they're not, this is not a merger. So let's say Facebook bought Instagram. I don't actually know if it's a merger or if it's a takeover. So if Instagram and Facebook are still partnered, then it's a merger. If Facebook is the sole owner, then it's a takeover. And that's it, guys. That's all we needed to learn for this lesson. You should know all the calculations by heart because they're very simple to understand, and you know the concepts as well. So if you have any questions, just type them in the comment box, leave a subscribe, and you can always message me on personally on Instagram if you want. Alright guys, thank you for watching the video. See you in the